What's up guys, and welcome back to MoAn Inc. If you guys are new here, then hello. My name is Erica and it is a pleasure to have you joining me today on the channel. Because for today's video, as you can see from the title, we are going to be going into a context introductory video about Aristophanes. But before we can get into that, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the bell icon so that you know every single time I post in the future. And now that you have so kindly done that, let's get into the video. So before we dive right in, it is obviously incredibly important for me to say, like I do in every other context episode, it is incredibly difficult to figure out context of an ancient Greek writer in general in our modern society. And the reason is because these writers are not writing biographies. They're not sitting down and giving us diaries. They have given us their work. And then obviously as classicists and as historians, we have tried to infer a lot about them from that. Not only from their specific work that is obviously in their voice, but also from references to them, maybe other depictions of them, and so on and so forth. And I always want to start every context episode by mentioning that because, well, you have to really take everything I say with a little grain of salt. I have done my research, obviously, in order to give you guys this context episode, but dates vary, little details vary when it comes to who they are and what they do. Even things about them and their past, maybe their parentage, it's all just inferred from random things that are said here, there, and everywhere, and maybe little snippets from the work themselves. So just bear that in mind as we go through today's episode. Again, I say this with every single context episode, and it's because I do not want to see comments of anyone saying something like, well, we know for certain, we know this, we know that. Don't confuse people. We don't really know all that much. Anywho, let's actually tell you a little bit about Aristophanes himself. Aristophanes himself was born somewhere within the time period of 460 to 450 BC. I see various dates popping up along the internet. I think if you pretty much say anywhere between there, you're pretty much good. And he died sometime between 390 and 380 BC. So again, you say anything in that time period and you're fine. Aristophanes is most famous for his comedic plays. So he is the funny guy from ancient Greece and we love it. Honestly, some of his plays are just so iconic. When we get to the list of them, you will know exactly what they are because Aristophanes does not miss. He's really known for his old comedy style, though some of his plays did move into a new comedy kind of era, but the most famous ones that we have are old comedy, very traditional, very much set up joke, and then say the punchline. Now, I do just want to let you guys know, because we will be discussing a lot of these plays on the channel, that when it comes to the jokes, we know that they're all jokes. Maybe not all of them hit. Some of them we don't really know the meaning of still today, but we do know that he was very, very funny at the time, and that's important to acknowledge. So when it comes to Aristophanes as a person, before we have all of his playwriting and we have him being this incredibly successful comedy writer, very, very little is known about him. When it comes to even where he's from, that is hotly debated. Reason being is because the majority of people, and I say the majority only because there's always that like odd article, there's always that odd scholar in the corner that's like, I don't think that's right. Welcome to our community. But the majority of people do think, and I would say know, that he was an Athenian citizen. However, we do know that he had links to the island of Aegina. Now, the reason why I wanted to highlight this is because you will read so many rumors, even within the ancient sources. Did he own a house on Aegina? Did his father own a house on Aegina? Was his father from Aegina? Like, there are just so many questions about Aegina and what exactly the tie to Aegina was. We don't really know for certain, but we know that there was some sort of tie to the island. However, when it comes to Aristophanes himself, he seems to have lived in Athens for at least the majority of his life. There are a couple of very famous portrayals of Aristophanes, the most famous being from Plato's Symposium. We have a whole video summarizing that here on the channel. I didn't really focus on Aristophanes there. Oh, and he actually does, now that I've just said that, he does pop up in reference in Plato's Apology as well. So let's start with the Symposium. What we can tell about Aristophanes and his character is that he was fun. He seems to be really extroverted, very much engaged in conversation, engaged in going out, right? We have references to him. How am I going to put this? Having fun, shall we say. He was a big fan of women and men and wine. that is the holy trinity for Aristophanes. So he seems like he's a real fun guy in the Symposium, the way that he's described. He seems like he's very carefree. He's very much just kind of living his life the way that he wants to do it. Very much engaged in conversation, very much engaged in getting to know people, being extroverted, going out on the town. Obviously, that makes... I just hit the microphone. Well, moving on. It makes sense considering to be a comedy writer in the way that Aristophanes was. He's commenting very, very much on Athenian society, on Athenian norms, making all of these nods to what was going on in order to make things funny. That's how comedy works. You've got to be really engaged with what's going on around you in order to be able to slice through it, to make everybody laugh about it, to make everybody kind of sit there and be like, oh yeah, that thing that we do, that is funny, or that is illogical, or that is whatever it happens to be, right? That's why we love comedy, that it takes real life and it goes, what if we laugh at it? Let's look at it this way. However, the portrayal of Aristophanes in the Apology, it isn't necessarily negative. However, there is a reference to him that Socrates is saying in his trial. So the Apology is his defense of himself, right? It's when he's on trial, you know, Athens is like, he's a problem. And he steps forward and he says, the only reason why you think I'm a problem is because of all of these weird things that are going around. The only time that we've ever heard of me disbelieving in the gods is in the play that Aristophanes just recently put on. So... is that necessarily the most positive light when it comes to Aristophanes? I guess not, but also in a way, the fact that he could say that, obviously this is just a text by Plato, but the fact that that could be said in a text about another thing that's going on implies that Aristophanes was that famous. Did that make sense, or did I overcomplicate that for you guys? The fact that Aristophanes as a person was mentioned in Plato is one thing, but the fact that his work is mentioned in another thing, and it's not even explained, indicates his popularity. Hopefully that made a bit more sense. Either way, we think Aristophanes wrote around 40 comedy plays, but as I say in all of these videos, not all of them survive. So I have written down a list because I was not going to remember all of these dates. Some of these you probably will know. A lot of the really famous ones I will be discussing on the channel. So we start with the Acharnians in 425 BC, moving into the Knights in 424 BC, the Clouds in 423 BC, the Wasps 422 BC, Peace 421 BC, the Birds 414, Lysistrata in 411, the Women of the Thesmophoria in 411, the Frogs 405, a word that I absolutely can't say, so I'm just going to be including it on the screen because I'm not even going to attempt it, but that is from 392 BC. And then the last one is Plutus, or wealth, depending on if you actually translate the word Plutus or not, is from 388 BC. Now, there are obviously references to some of his other plays that don't survive. For example, his first play, which is called The Banqueters, that is from 427 BC, and that doesn't survive, but we do know that it was a thing. We also know that there were two plays that came after Plutus, or Wealth. However, those don't survive, but they were in a new style of comedy. So we know that those two would have changed things. Again, we know this from references. We know this from other people talking about them, that they were a different kind of comedy. So just bear that in mind. Didn't know where I was going with that point. But what was so special about Aristophanes? Why is it that we like to read him still, even though, as I said, we don't necessarily get all of his jokes? Now, we know that he made a huge wave. We know that he won loads of awards, but unlike Euripides and unlike Sophocles, we can't really piece together exactly how many he would have won. We just know that he won a good chunk of them because he was so popular. And he was clearly so influential when it came to ancient Greek comedy. Now, the reason why we know that is because he is noted for having an incredibly sharp wit, And most of this was seen through the chorus, which was very new and innovative that he was doing. So for example, as I was reading off the plays, we have the wasps, we've got clouds, we've got birds. Those plays are all named after the chorus. And they're the ones who are really quippy. I mean, obviously the other characters are also very quippy. But it's very much the chorus who are playing this active role in the comedy. And I mean, there are loads of puns. Again, lots of them do get lost quite literally in translation. There's a really famous one. Oh, what was that from Lysistrata? The lion on the cheese grater? You know what? There have been lots of theories about what that means. Lots of convincing theories about what that means. But what I'm trying to say is that a lot of it does get lost in translation, but the role of puns, the sharp wit, and the way that he is so unafraid to ridicule his contemporary Athenian society made him so popular in his day. Two of Aristophanes' favourite targets were Cleon, who was a politician in ancient Athens at that time, as well as his contemporary Euripides. So Aristophanes was not afraid to make jokes about everybody, and he made everybody laugh because of it, and we thoroughly enjoy still reading his plays today. Oh, and obviously he was so popular because comedy can hide a lot of those real world problems with a joke. So, you know, the social issues that women were facing is a big thing that Aristophanes deals with. He deals with a lot of the politics at the time and many cultural changes throughout the city. And obviously that is important because he could do all of that and make people laugh about it without really, like the, you know, tragedians, Euripides and Sophocles, getting into the nitty-gritty and making it blaringly obvious what he was doing. He just gets to kind of make fun of everything, but also, you know, really accentuate that these problems are happening within their society. But that is everything that I have to say about Aristophanes, which means, it means that because I'm doing a context episode, we will be reading Aristophanes. But much like, as I said, with my introductory episode with Euripides and with, oh my god, what is his name? Sophocles! Much like with those episodes, I have already decided that I will definitely be doing Lysistrata and Frogs. However, if you are watching this and you guys need any other play from Aristophanes, whether it be that you just want to read it, maybe you didn't understand something in it, maybe you are a student who's studying a specific text, do let me know in the comments below which plays you would like me to go into. Because again, much like with the tragedians, we'll be doing this on a request basis. Aside from Lysistrata and Frogs, I'm definitely going to be doing those because I've already gotten so many requests for those two plays. But any of the other plays, do let me know in the comments below, and I will make sure to upload videos for you guys in the coming weeks about them. So thank you guys so much for tuning into today's video. I know that I'm not in my normal setup, but we will be back in London in a short time, and therefore I will be filming as I normally do. But thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we'll be seeing you next time with more videos here on MoAn Inc. I'll see you guys then.